Let me begin by providing some context for the comments that I will make. From my perspective, air pollution in urban areas across the United States, including the Houston area, is responsible for two key challenges that need to be addressed. The first is the challenges of priority pollutants, which contribute to ozone formation, as well as particulates which threaten human health. And the second one, of course, is greenhouse gas emissions, which are contributing to climate change. I believe that reducing these pollutants is an absolute necessity in order to improve public health, address climate change, and ensure the long-term viability of Texas' very robust industrial sector. Fortunately, technology development and innovation in the state's electricity sector, as well as forthcoming changes in the transportation sector, will provide, in my opinion, cost-effective options to address these challenges. Over the next 10 years, I believe that those key options will blossom, and they include two key items. The first is the growth of clean energy resources, which includes wind and solar power, along with energy efficiency, storage resources, and the increasing tendency of homeowners and businesses desire to generate their own electricity. And secondly, the electrification of on-road and off-road roads are charged as the greener. Texas, currently, there are 3 non-attainment areas in Texas. Those include the Dallas-Fort Worth metropolitan area, Houston, Galveston, and more recently, the San Antonio area. Go to the next slide, please. The Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, or TCEQ, has concluded that NOx is the pollutant that needs to be reduced to ensure attainment of ozone standards in these non-attainment areas. And as this particular slide indicate, across the state, 50% of NOx emissions are coming from vehicles. Next slide, please. Within the 3 non-attainment areas, even NOx emissions from vehicles exist at even higher levels. 78% in Dallas-Fort Worth, 67% in Houston, and 58% in San Antonio. Next slide, please. According to reputable sources, the transportation sector in Houston is also the primary emitter of various carbon emissions. I'm not sure, I have some concern as to whether or not it's 84% as projected in this slide and retrieved from reliable sources, but certainly a majority of the carbon emissions emitted in Houston are coming from vehicles. Next slide, please. At EDF, we have completed analyses that quantify the emissions from different types of medium and heavy duty vehicles, including those fueled by diesel, CNG, and electricity. We have computed those emissions under 2 different scenarios. First is life cycle total emissions of the different fuel sources that we believe will be powering vehicles in the future. And the other one is tailpipe emissions. Next slide, please. We have done extensive research with regard to emissions from different types of transit buses. Our analysis shows that electric vehicles, when deployed, electric transit buses have the potential to substantially reduce greenhouse gas emissions from vehicles, approximately 2/3 from diesel and CNG vehicles. And one of the things I want to point out in this slide is that in Texas, there has been significant effort for CNG to be used to power vehicles. CNG does substantially reduce NOx emissions, which is one of the pollutants that contribute to ozone formation, but actually emit more GHGs than diesel, and approximately 75% more than electric vehicles in terms of total emissions, life cycle emissions. Next slide, please. In this slide, it shows that electric vehicles, from a total emission standpoint, substantially reduce the level of NOx and VOCs that are emitted in comparison to diesel and CNG vehicles. So from our perspective in time, electric vehicles would become one of the most cost-effective options that exist to reduce pollutants that contribute to ozone formation, as well as greenhouse gases. Next slide, please. This shifting from total emissions or life cycle emissions, this slide depicts tailpipe emissions from diesel buses to the left, to my left, CNG vehicles toward the center, and electric vehicles to the far right. With regard to electric vehicles, tailpipes emissions are completely eliminated for NOx, VOCs, and greenhouse gases. Further, if clean energy is used to charge electric vehicles, or as the grid become cleaner because of increased use of wind and solar power and other clean energy resources, the opportunity will exist for the electric vehicles to reduce tailpipe emissions even more. Next slide, please. Also, very importantly, there has been great progress made in the manufacture and the deployment of electric transit buses. Today, when one considered the upfront cost of different types of buses and the cost of maintenance and fuel over the useful lives of these vehicles, which is approximately 13 years, electric transit buses already are more cost effective than diesel and CNG than diesel and CNG fuel buses. For diesel, the savings is approximately $160,000 over the useful life of that vehicle. And for natural gas, it's approximately $50,000. Next slide, please. In addition to the significant opportunities that will exist in time to reduce both health emissions and carbon emissions through the deployment of electric vehicles, another major change that is underway is the growth of clean energy in the Texas electricity market, particularly the competitive market that is operated by ERCOT. Currently, approximately 23% of the electricity used in this state on an annual basis is from wind power. And ERCOT is projecting that that resource will continue to grow. Additionally, ERCOT is projecting phenomenal growth of solar power over the next 10 years and beyond in the range of 25,000 to 30,000 megawatts, which means that in Texas, the ERCOT competitive market is driving the growth of clean energy resources so that they will contribute up to approximately 50% of the electricity we are using in this state by 2030. Today, wind and solar power are the cheapest sources of electricity on the Texas grid and are virtually emissions-free, and over time can save enough water that will be sufficient to meet approximately a third of our rapidly growing population. This particular slide summarizes pending electric generation projects that have initiated the process of potentially being developed in coming years. A substantial proportion of these projects will not materialize for various reasons. But very importantly, 95% of the pending projects are solar and wind projects, and there are actually more resources pending than natural gas, and there are no coal-fired generation projects pending. For summer 2020, the growth of wind and solar over the past year has enabled ERCOT to increase its reserve margin from last year of approximately 7.5% to about approximately 10.5%. And the grid operator is projecting that over the next 4 years, the growth of solar power in particular and coastal wind will drive the reserve margin to somewhere between 10% to 18%. Now, that means we believe that most coal capacity within the state of Texas will be pushed off the grid by 2035 due to the fact that it cannot compete within the ERCOT market. That means that solar power, which has a capacity factor of almost 75% in summer, when we use the most electricity, is on track to be able to replace the coal generation that would be pushed off the grid. Some are concerned about that. From an environmental perspective, and I also believe from a grid reliability standpoint, that's all good news, because approximately 65% of the greenhouse gas emissions that are emitted in the electricity sector is from coal-fired generation. So consider this. We have the opportunity over the next 10 years, not because of regulation, but because of competitive market forces, to move to a low carbon grid where priority pollutants have been substantially reduced. Greenhouse gas emissions in this sector have been substantially reduced by 2/3 and are paving the way for us to achieve significant reductions in the transportation sector as well, because we believe that because of growing concern about air pollution in urban areas, and climate change, consumers and businesses will shift, particularly between 2025 and beyond, to electric vehicles because they will be more cost effective, and from a tailpipe emission standpoint, which are the emissions used in terms of affecting ozone levels, those emissions will be virtually zero from those vehicles. In cities like Houston, trash trucks, transit buses, school buses will run through neighborhoods without outputting air pollution, thereby improving the public health of our children and our citizens in a cost-effective manner. Thank you.
And thank